The morning had unfolded in its usual, undisturbed manner, a gentle dance of light and shadow through the curtains, until the sharp ring of the phone cut through the silence, an ominous herald. My heart thudded with a premonition as I reached for the receiver, the cool plastic suddenly seeming like a conduit to another realm. "Mrs. Thompson?" The voice on the other end was clinical, detached, a voice accustomed to delivering news that could alter the course of lives. "Yes, speaking," I managed to reply, my voice a mere whisper, betraying the sudden onset of dread that gripped me. "This is St. Mary's Hospital. I'm calling to inform you that your husband, David Thompson, was admitted early this morning following a heart attack. He's stable now, but in critical condition. We recommend you come to the hospital as soon as you can." The world seemed to pause, the air thick with words unspoken, a moment suspended between the past and an uncertain future. "I'll be there immediately," I said, a strength surfacing from within, propelling me into action despite the shock that threatened to immobilize me. The hospital was a blur of white walls and hushed voices, a maze that led me to the waiting room where she sat. The woman, a stranger intertwined in the tapestry of my life without my knowledge, looked up as I approached, her eyes red-rimmed, a mirror of my own fears and confusion. "Are you David's wife?" Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, as if aware of the intrusion her presence marked in my world. "Yes, I am." "And you are?" I replied, my tone polite yet firm, a defense mechanism against the vulnerability that this situation imposed upon me. She looked down, fidgeting with the envelope in her hands, an object that seemed to weigh heavily upon her. I was a friend of David's. He asked me to give you this," she said, extending the envelope towards me, her gesture laden with an unspoken gravity. Taking the envelope, I noted the familiar scrawl of David's handwriting, my name etched across the front in ink. A wave of emotions threatened to overwhelm me. Curiosity, anger, sadness, a maelstrom of feelings elicited by a piece of paper and the secrets it contained. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging within. "Did he say anything else?" "No, that's all." "I'm so sorry," she whispered before standing up and walking away, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the letter that promised to unveil a hidden chapter of my husband's life. Back home, the envelope sat unopened on the kitchen table, a silent testament to the precipice on which I found myself. With trembling hands, I broke the seal, unfolding the letter to reveal David's words, each sentence a step into the unknown. "My dearest love," it began, the words a blend of apology and confession, a bridge across the chasm that had suddenly opened between us. "If you're reading this, then I'm sorry. Sorry for the secrets I've kept and the pain they might cause." As I read through David's confession, the reality of his affair, the existence of a child born from that liaison, my world shifted on its axis. The man I thought I knew, the life we had built together, all called into question by the revelations contained within the folds of paper I held in my hands. In that moment, standing at the crossroads of forgiveness and betrayal, I realized that the journey ahead would be one of the most challenging I had ever faced. Yet, it was a journey I knew I had to undertake, for the sake of our family, for the sake of a child innocent of the circumstances of his birth, and for my own sake, to find peace in the midst of the storm David's actions had unleashed. After reading David's letter, a tempest of emotions churned within me. The confession laid bare on the kitchen table illuminated my world in a stark, unforgiving light. David's words, heavy with regret, echoed in my mind, a relentless reminder of the seismic shift in the foundation of our marriage. In the midst of my turmoil, the doorbell rang, a sound so mundane yet jarringly out of place in the chaos of my current reality. I hesitated before answering, half expecting another bearer of bad news. Instead, I found Mia, our daughter, standing on the doorstep, her eyes wide with concern. "Mom, what's wrong? You look upset." Mia's intuition always had a way of cutting through pretenses. I forced a smile, the letter crumpled in my hand, a stark contrast to the facade I attempted to uphold. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just some unexpected news about your dad." Mia stepped inside, her gaze drifting to the letter on the table. "Is Dad okay?" "The hospital called me too, but they wouldn't say much." I sighed, realizing the futility of trying to shield her from the truth. Your father had a heart attack. He's stable now, but there's more, Mia. Her brow furrowed, a reflection of my own confusion and pain. More? What do you mean? I gestured to the chair opposite me, the letter now a bridge between us, a conduit for the revelations about to unfold. Your dad wrote this letter. It's about a part of his life we didn't know about. Mia read the letter in silence, her expression morphing from confusion to shock, then settling into a thoughtful quiet. A brother, she finally whispered, the word hanging between us, laden with implications we were only beginning to grasp. Yes, I confirmed, the reality of the situation feeling more tangible spoken aloud. David had a son with someone else. A son he's been keeping a secret. Mia leaned back, processing the information. And this woman at the hospital? She was the one who gave me the letter. She said she was just a friend of your father's, but I think there's more to it. We sat in silence, the magnitude of David's confession enveloping us in a shared bewilderment. Mom, what are we going to do? Mia's voice, usually so full of conviction, trembled with uncertainty. I took her hand, finding strength in our connection. We're going to meet him, Mia. Your brother. It's what your father wanted, and I think it's the right thing to do. Mia nodded, her resilience surfacing as she squeezed my hand in return. Okay, Mom. We'll do this, together. The decision to welcome an unknown part of David's life into ours was daunting, yet it felt like the only path forward. As we began to plan our next steps, I couldn't help but feel that the envelope's weight had shifted. It was no longer just a bearer of secrets and pain, but a catalyst for a journey of understanding, forgiveness, and perhaps, healing. In the silence of the kitchen, with the letter lying open between us, Mia and I found a new resolve. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges we could scarcely anticipate. Yet, in that moment, we understood that facing those challenges together was the only way to navigate the complexities of the revelations that had upended our lives. The journey to understanding and acceptance was just beginning, and as daunting as it seemed, I knew we would face it as a family, no matter what the future held. Given the constraints and policies, I'll create a narrative focusing on emotional depth and character development while ensuring compliance with the guidelines provided. The days following our decision to meet David's other son, whom the letter revealed as Ethan, were a blur of anticipation and apprehension. Mia and I had discussed at length how to approach this delicate situation, knowing that the outcome would significantly impact all our lives. On the day of the meeting, Mia and I found ourselves at a quaint little cafe downtown, a neutral ground where we hoped to start bridging the gap that David's secrets had created. The autumn wind played with the chimes at the cafe's entrance, a melodic backdrop to the tumultuous emotions within. He should be here any minute, Mia said, her voice a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. She fidgeted with her coffee cup, her eyes scanning the cafe for any sign of Ethan. I reached across the table, covering her hand with mine in a silent gesture of support. We'll get through this together, I reassured her, though my own heart was racing. Just then, the door opened, admitting a young man whose resemblance to David was unmistakable. He paused at the entrance, his gaze sweeping the cafe until it landed on us. Taking a deep breath, he approached our table. Ethan? I asked, standing up to greet him. My voice was steadier than I felt. Yes, Mrs. Thompson? And you must be Mia, Ethan replied, his voice carrying a hint of David's warmth. He looked at us with a mixture of apprehension and hope. We invited him to sit, and for a moment, we all just looked at each other, the weight of the situation settling around us like a tangible presence. Ethan, thank you for agreeing to meet us, I started, breaking the silence. I know this must be as difficult for you as it is for us. He nodded, his hands clasped tightly on the table. When my mom told me about my dad, and about you, I didn't know what to think. But I knew I had to meet you. Mia leaned forward, her youthful bravery shining through. We didn't know about you until recently. It's a lot to take in, but we're here because we want to understand. We want to know you. Ethan's gaze flickered between us, and I saw the walls he had built begin to crumble. I've always known about you, in a way. My mom, she told me about my dad, but she wanted to protect me, to keep me away from any pain, I guess. The conversation that followed was a dance of words, a careful exploration of our shared connections and the myriad emotions that David's letter had unleashed. We talked about David, about the impact his choices had made on our lives, and about the future. I never wanted to cause any trouble, Ethan said, his voice laden with concern. I just wanted to know my father, and maybe understand a bit more about where I come from. And we want to understand too, I replied, feeling a sense of kinship with this young man who was both a stranger and family. We're all navigating this the best we can. As the afternoon sun began to wane, casting long shadows across the cafe, I realized that this meeting was only the first step on a long journey of healing and reconciliation. Ethan, Mia, and I were bound by a common thread, one woven from the fabric of David's choices. But it was up to us to decide how to move forward, to weave a new narrative from the tangled web of the past. We have a lot to figure out, Mia said, encapsulating the sentiment that hung in the air. But I think we can do it, together. Ethan smiled, a genuine, hopeful expression that mirrored my own feelings. Together, he agreed. As we parted ways that day, I felt a cautious optimism take root. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and the need for forgiveness. Yet, in the presence of Ethan and Mia, I found the strength to believe that we could forge a new path, one illuminated by understanding and the shared desire to heal the wounds of the past. The days following our initial meeting with Ethan were filled with a cautious optimism and many questions. Mia and I found ourselves discussing the future, pondering how we could integrate Ethan into our lives in a way that honored all our feelings and respected the complexity of our situation. One evening, as we sat in the living room, surrounded by old photo albums and memories, Mia broached a subject that had been lingering in the back of our minds. Mom, do you think Dad knew about Ethan's existence all along? Do you think he wanted us to meet him? Mia's inquiry was gentle, yet it pierced the heart of our family's silent queries. I sighed, turning the pages of an album absent-mindedly. I believe your father was torn. His letter seemed like a plea for understanding, an attempt to mend what he broke. Meeting Ethan was his wish, perhaps a way to right some wrongs. Mia nodded, her expression thoughtful. Ethan seems nice. It's weird thinking I have a brother I never knew about. But I'm glad we met him. I think Dad would have wanted that. Her maturity in the face of such revelations astounded me. I'm proud of you, Mia. This isn't easy, but you're handling it with so much grace. We fell into a comfortable silence, each lost in thought until the doorbell rang, slicing through the quiet of the evening. Ethan stood on the doorstep when I opened the door, a mix of nervousness and determination etched on his features. Hi, Mrs. Thompson, Mia. I hope I'm not intruding. I've been thinking a lot about our talk, and I wondered if we could chat more. Maybe help me understand more about my dad from your perspective? Ethan's request hung in the air, laden with the weight of shared history and uncharted futures. Of course, Ethan. Come in, I said, stepping aside to let him enter. Mia smiled at him, a gesture of welcome that seemed to ease some of his apprehension. As we gathered around the kitchen table with cups of tea, the evening unfolded into a tapestry of stories and revelations about David. Mia and I shared anecdotes of his life, his quirks, and the love we knew he had for his family. It's strange, Ethan began, his voice tinged with a mix of sadness and curiosity. Growing up, I had this image of my dad from the stories my mom told me. But hearing about him from you, it's like I'm getting to know a whole different side of him. It's never easy, reconciling the different facets of a person, I admitted. David was complex, full of contradictions. But he loved deeply, and I believe he wanted the best for all of us, even if his choices didn't always reflect that. Mia reached across the table, placing a hand over Ethan's. We're figuring this out together, Ethan. You're not alone in this. His gratitude was palpable, a silent acknowledgement of the newfound connection between us. Thank you, both of you. This means everything to me. That night, as Ethan left, promising to return soon, I realized that our journey towards understanding and acceptance was just beginning. David's actions had woven a complex web that bound us together in unexpected ways. Yet, through the openness and willingness to connect, we were slowly unraveling the knots, revealing the possibility of a new family dynamic built on the foundations of empathy, respect, and love. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with potential for both healing and heartache. But in that moment, I believed that together, we could navigate the complexities of our intertwined lives, forging a future where the shadows of the past no longer held sway over our collective happiness. In the weeks that followed Ethan's second visit, our lives began to intertwine in ways that none of us could have anticipated. The initial awkwardness gave way to a comfortable familiarity, as if Ethan had always been a part of our lives. Mia, in particular, embraced her role as a big sister with enthusiasm, her bond with Ethan strengthening with each passing day. One Saturday afternoon, as autumn painted the world in hues of amber and gold, we decided to take a family outing to the local park. The crisp air was filled with the laughter of children and the rustle of falling leaves, a perfect backdrop for our growing family to create new memories. As we found a spot under an old oak tree, Mia and Ethan kicked a ball around, their laughter a balm to my soul. Watching them, a sense of peace settled over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. "Ethan," Mia called out, pausing to catch her breath, "you're pretty good at this." Ethan grinned, dribbling the ball with ease. "Thanks. You're not too bad yourself, sis." Their easy banter was a joy to witness, a sign of the healing that was taking place within our family. I unpacked our picnic, spreading out sandwiches and fruit, as they continued to play. Later, as we sat enjoying our meal, Ethan turned to me, a serious look on his face. "Mrs. Thompson, I want to say thank you for welcoming me into your lives like this. I know it couldn't have been easy." I smiled, reaching across to squeeze his hand. "Ethan, you're part of this family. And please, call me Emily." His smile in response was all the answer I needed. Mia chimed in, her voice filled with sincerity. "Yeah, Ethan. We're in this together now. You're stuck with us." We all laughed, the sound echoing through the park, a testament to the resilience of the human heart and the capacity for forgiveness and love. As the afternoon gave way to evening, and the park began to empty, we gathered our things, not ready for the day to end. "How about a movie night?" I suggested, eager to prolong the sense of unity we'd found. Ethan's eyes lit up. "That sounds great. Can I pick the movie?" Mia groaned playfully. "Only if it's not one of those boring documentaries you love." "Deal." Ethan agreed, and we made our way home, a sense of contentment enveloping us. That night, as we sat curled up on the couch, watching Ethan's choice, which, for the record, was not a documentary, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us to this moment. David's letter, once a harbinger of pain and betrayal, had become the catalyst for something beautiful, a family rediscovering its strength, embracing its newest member with open hearts. The road ahead would undoubtedly hold its challenges, but in that moment, as I looked at Mia and Ethan laughing together at something on the screen, I knew we were building something enduring. A family, redefined not by the secrets that once threatened to tear us apart, but by the love and acceptance that now bound us together. This chapter in our lives was just beginning, a narrative woven from the threads of past mistakes and present forgiveness. And as we sat there, together in the soft glow of the television, I felt a profound gratitude for the twist of fate that had brought Ethan into our lives, turning shadows into light, and strangers into family. As autumn waned into winter, our newly blended family found comfort in the routines we established together. Ethan had become a fixture in our home, his presence a constant reminder of the complexity and beauty of human connections. Mia and Ethan's relationship flourished, their initial camaraderie blossoming into a deep sibling bond that warmed my heart. One chilly evening, as we gathered in the living room with steaming cups of hot chocolate, Ethan broached a subject that had been on all our minds. "Emily, Mia," he began, his voice laced with a mixture of hesitation and resolve, "I've been thinking a lot about Dad, about David. I know I never really knew him, but I feel like I'm starting to, through both of you. Mia leaned forward, her expression encouraging. Ethan, Dad loved you. Even though he made mistakes, he wanted us to be a family. I see that now. I nodded, the weight of David's letter and his wishes for us still fresh in my mind. Your father had his flaws, like all of us, but he loved deeply. He would have wanted you to know that, Ethan. Ethan's gaze flickered between us, a vulnerability in his eyes that he seldom showed. Do you think it's possible to miss someone you never really knew? It's more than possible, I replied softly, understanding the complexity of his emotions. You're mourning the idea of him, Ethan, and the relationship you could have had. It's a natural part of coming to terms with all of this. Mia reached out, taking Ethan's hand in hers. We're your family, Ethan. We'll help you through this, every step of the way. The conversation shifted then, as we began to share memories of David, stories of his quirks, his laughter, and the love he had for his family. It was a cathartic experience, a way for Ethan to connect with the father he never knew and for Mia and me to remember David in a new light. As the night deepened and the embers in the fireplace dwindled to a soft glow, I suggested something that felt like the next natural step in our journey of healing and connection. I think it's time we visit David's grave together. It would be a good way for us to honor his memory as a family. Ethan's response was immediate, a mixture of gratitude and relief evident in his voice. I'd like that, Emily. Thank you. Mia squeezed his hand, a silent show of support. We'll do it together, Ethan. It'll be our way of saying goodbye, and hello. The days leading up to our visit were filled with a quiet anticipation. When the day finally arrived, we stood together before David's resting place, the winter sun casting long shadows across the ground. It was a moment of profound significance, a tangible acknowledgement of our past and a hopeful glance toward our future. David, I hope you're at peace, knowing that we're all here together, I said, my voice steady despite the tears that pricked at my eyes. Ethan knelt, placing a flower on the grave. Dad, I wish I could have known you. But I promise to make you proud. Mia wrapped her arm around Ethan, her other hand holding mine. We're a family because of you, Dad. We'll take care of each other. As we left the cemetery that day, the crisp winter air felt a little less cold, the path ahead a little less daunting. Our family, forged from loss and love, had taken a significant step toward healing. The shadows that once loomed so large in our lives were now behind us, dispelled by the light of understanding and the warmth of newfound bonds. In the end, David's letter did not just unveil the shadows of his past, it illuminated the path to our future, a future where love, forgiveness, and family reigned supreme. As we moved forward, I knew that whatever challenges we might face, we would face them together, as a family united not just by blood, but by choice and by the unbreakable bonds of the heart.